Shawn and Jeremy here from menzagaming.net. Really proud to be bringing you our introduction video for the Menza Open. We're a few months early. The event's still a while away, but we thought we'd get in fast. We've just released a player pack and there's been a lot of questions, a lot of excitement so far. So we thought we'd get this out as quick as we can to answer some of those questions. Shawn, let's get into it.
Yeah, look, we've got a lot of content to go through, guys, so we'll try and do this as quick as we can. We don't want to keep you here for too long. We'll start off with a bit of an introduction to the event. So this is the announcement, grand announcement, Menza Open. Big event, 1350 points, Oz FAQ, Oz New Zealand FAQ with a few little iterations which we'll go through in a minute. Yeah, 1350 points, $60 entry, potentially $5,000 prize pool, House of War. It's all happening.
Yeah, so I guess like when we kind of conceived this event, we thought there's a few things we wanted to aim towards. Obviously, there are a few really exciting events recently. Most recently there was Terracon over in Narracourt. We just got back from WinterCon, which was up in Canberra at Exhibition Hall, I think it's called, Exhibition Park. So some really good events Australia-wide, and we kind of really wanted to replicate that. So we wanted to make sure that there was that hype. And there was so much hype leading up to both of those events. And we thought, what better way to celebrate the inaugural Menza Open than to try and replicate some of that hype.
Yeah.
So how have we done that?
Okay, well, just touching on that Terracon. Terracon was an amazing event. I held, Tio there was...
Eric Hitchener.
Eric Hitchener, yeah. Thank you, sorry. Probably one of the best events I've been to thus far. Ran really well, great vibe, really relaxed, laid-back event that also ran professionally. And that's what we want to, emulate. And we want to bring that to the table. WinterCon, Tio there, Scott Duvall, did an amazing job there. Same deal. Really laid-back environment, but also very professionally run. And we want to bring the same to this event. Menza Open was a bit of a trial for us, and it went really well. We're really proud of the success that we got from that one, and we want to, continue to bring that. And
Menza Masquerade.
Oh, sorry, Menza Masquerade. Yeah. Menza Masquerade we held earlier on this year. Great event. Had a lot of fun with that one. So we'll get straight into it. There's a bit to go through. We are announcing, in addition to this and in conjunction with the Menza Open, is the Menza Triboard format. It's a new system. It's a bit of an overlay which we've developed. It's been in the works for several months. We've been talking about this and working on it for quite some time, and we think we finally nailed it. And here it is.
All right. So as a preamble to the Menza Triboard format, you're going to read the details out in a second.
Sure.
But a lot of you will be familiar with the word sideboard. Sideboard is not something that we've got ownership over. It's not a concept unique to any particular game. It is quite prevalent and it's used extensively within Magic the Gathering competitive scene. In fact, it's actually kind of ingrained in just even casual play for Magic the Gathering.
Yep.
Often two players will meet up, they'll have their sideboards. It's kind of like an inbuilt balancing mechanic that allows you to, I guess, overcome the rock, paper, scissors dynamic of a lot of games. Yep. A lot of games, whether it's a card game or a tabletop game, will have an element of paper, rock, scissors. I turn up with rock. You've got paper, so I'll try my best. Maybe I've got a 15-20% chance of winning, but more often than not, I'll get stomped. So how does a sideboard, just conceptually speaking, not necessarily unique to 40k, how does that combat that?
So a sideboard works, and just on that note, there's nothing worse than playing a game of Warhammer where you rock up to the table and your opponent has like the perfect counter to your list and you're just fighting fate when you're throwing those dice. There's nothing worse than that. So what sideboarding does is that it gives you an element of tactical, strategic flexibility before you even deploy your army. It allows you to plug the weaknesses of your army, and supplement it with things that you might be vulnerable to, and it also allows you to exploit an opponent's weaknesses. If they've got something like they try and take a big gravy like a Wraith Knight, you can go, well, someone's going to run a Wraith Knight this event, I'm going to take a big Grav drop and just hard counter that bad boy.
Yeah, so there's so many like computations of how you could use sideboards. As Shawn said, you can use it to add to your strengths. So you could have a really strong list with kind of 3 prongs of additional kind of strength. Or you can have a defensive sideboard where you kind of think, as you said, what am I expecting to see? Oh, Land Raider's cool. I might take some Grav to counter like a mobilized Land Raider as well as hit a Wraith Knight. I might want to have a Colexus Assassin.
Yep.
So many availabilities in those sideboards.
Yep. Okay, so I'll just run through the rules very, very briefly. It's really sweet. It's really short and sweet and compact, right? So, no detachment taken in your army can become the Apocalypse with any other detachment in the army. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, the core list is 1,000 points. It must be a legal battle-forged army with the Warlord and the primary detachment, and it has up to 2 detachments within your core list, 1,000 points for this event. Your sideboards have 350 points each and can include additional units for your primary detachment or new units in a new detachment. So you can have an allied detachment in your sideboard, which can bring a completely new element to your army to try and help you overcome anything you might come across. Lastly, we understand that even though this event is a 1350 point game, a lot of people have been a little bit put off by that smaller point format. The game is actually 2,050 points, right? Because you've got access to all those models. However, for players who want to run an exclusive 1350 point single list army, they think they've built a list and they've honed it down to this little perfect little nut, and they want to try and plug things with it. We do give them a bonus because they haven't got those tactical options with the sideboard. If you only have one sideboard, which is one list, you may choose to either re-roll the dice to seize the initiative, or your Warlord gains an additional Warlord trait, which can be rolled on anything that his codex is eligible to. So
we've got some examples. I've got a couple of examples for that specific.
Sure.
We've had some questions come in actually a few minutes ago. One example would be a Warlord with a fixed Warlord trait, such as Dante. Dante has a fixed Warlord trait, Descent of Angels. He also has a tactical trait that's generated from the tactical tree in the rulebook. If Dante is your Warlord in a mono sideboard army, so you've just got your 1350 points, then Dante will generate an additional Warlord trait that a Blood Angels HQ, which he is, or he's a Lord of War, but a HQ option, a character option, is eligible for. So he's eligible for any of the rulebook traits, as well as the Blood Angels tree, if he's taken from Codex Blood Angels. If he's taken from, for example, the Flesh Tearer supplement, he would then have access to roll the Flesh Tearer's Warlord traits.
Yep.
Another example would be something like Asulman. Asulman generates D3 Warlord traits only from the Eldar Craftworld's Warlord traits. If taken as a mono sideboard, Asulman would generate D3 plus 1 from that tree. And lastly, there's another example of Azrael. Azrael, as well as some other select ICs, can pick their Warlord trait. So if you take Azrael as your Warlord in a mono MTF list, then Azrael will get to pick 2 Warlord traits. And they would have to be generated from his eligible Warlord trait trees, which I believe is only the Dark Angels tree. So he gets to pick 2 traits from that tree.
So there's definitely some plays there for those who want to just run that pure, pure one list,
Format.
Army list, yeah, and that's fine. So that's great as well. That selection, that choice, whether you want the +1 to seize the initiative, reroll to seize the initiative, or the Warlord trait that must be noted on the army list when you submit. There will be a template which we're going to release shortly, and we're going to do some some list writing examples and videos, and we're going to really explain everything, hash it out so people really know what to do when it comes to list writing. We'll do those in videos in the future, but there will be a template available soon, which will go up on the website as well. So stay tuned for that. Anything else to cover with the Menza Triboard format? It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think, I guess when we created it as an overlay, basically what we're saying is this is an overlay that's designed to kind of affect list writing and the actual matchmaking and list writing. It's not really, it doesn't really interact with the game rules itself at all. So it doesn't interact with certain house rules. It doesn't interact with FAQs like the Australian New Zealand FAQ, ITC or ETC. It doesn't interact with community comp either. Now, this isn't a negative thing. This is a positive thing because it means that it can be run with all of these formats.
When we designed the system, as I said, it took us quite a few months to bring it all together. We wanted to create a format an overlay that would allow players to play any game they wanted to and not have an impact on that. So this system was designed with community comp in mind. It was designed with ITC in mind. It was designed with ETC in mind. And it will work within any of those FAQs and any of those comp systems. It works in panel comp, peer comp, community comp, no comp, anything. Work in 30k.
Sideboards are not. Once again, we don't own that concept. It works in a card game. This could work in Warhammer Fantasy. It's not really. I mean, obviously we've included some rules that are very specific to Warhammer 40k, such as primary detachments, things like that, like the reroll to Cs and Warlord Trade bonus. But technically, this kind of idea can work in any tabletop game.
It's worth noting they're actually already using sideboards in the competitive Age of Sigmar scene throughout Europe. And they've had a lot of success with it. It's really taken off in a really big way for Age of Sigmar. The game's obviously hit a point where obviously different armies, different points values. I'm not too familiar with it all, but obviously sideboards has really helped that system out a lot, and people are playing it with prevalence over there.
So I guess we are recommending that it can be used with any event. If it is used with community comp, we've had some questions, and we do have a list of questions we'll address at the end of this video, but we have received a question of how do you evaluate your comp score? Because you've got your core list in 3 sideboards. How do you work out your comp score? Shawn, do you want to...
Oh yes, it's very straightforward. We simply recommend, obviously you have 3 available sideboards, you just take the highest comp score of the 3, and that is your comp score for that army. So if you had, say, let's say your core list was a 4-point little package, then you have a sideboard with 1 comp, a sideboard with 2 comp, and a sideboard with 3 comp. Your comp score for that would be 7 comp, which is your core list plus your largest comp score on your third.
Because you can feel the 7 comp list, therefore it's a 7 comp list.
So look, it's a new thing. Obviously, I think it might take a little bit of learning to get used to. I think it's a bit almost like chess in some ways. Like once you know all the pieces, you should have plenty of time having fun with it.
It's worth noting in regards to this sideboard situation, a lot of people have kind of expressed a little bit of, I guess you could say not unease so much as a bit of apprehension, because they feel like, it seems like a very competitive format, and you guys have announced a really big prize pool. Is this like one of those really serious win-at-all-cost tournaments? And I don't think we need to, obviously the answer is no. I mean, this is an event where people are going to want to win this. We've already had so many questions about people trying to break the system, how to exploit that, choosing your Warlord, having an additional Warlord trait. People really going at this at the throat. But this is an event for the hobby. When we say $5,000 prize pool, a lot of that is going to be going towards Best Presented Awards. We'll probably be giving the biggest Best Presented Award so far this year. We're giving 3 Best Presented,
we have a first, second, and third Best Presented. This is going back to the event, so the event's going to have a first, second, and third Best Presented, Best General. It's going to have a Player's Choice, and then obviously top 4. So first overall, second overall, third overall, and fourth overall, and Best General in addition to all those. So we're going to weight the prize pool across both categories, be it generalship or hobbyish, hobbymanship. Yep, that's a word.
Exactly. Dude.
So
we don't want... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I was just going to say, regarding this, I guess the initial impetus of my point was that the sideboard format, while it is obviously very conducive with competitive play, we want it to help, just people feel like they can run a less competitive codex. Like, for example, Sisters of Battle or Blood Angels, and they, rather than be kind of corralled into having to make their list be able to take on everything, they can say, okay, I've still got a chance. If I verse a knight, I've still got a chance. I'm going to
play to the strengths of my army's natural strengths, and then if I come into something that's going to force me off the table, I'm going to take in a Calexis Assassin or a Melter Drop or something of that sort.
So there are some pretty obvious kind of things to put into your sideboard, and we are going to release some videos of tips and tricks with sideboards. We're going to be available for practice games for the next couple of months. So for those of you that might feel like they've got a bit of a grasp, but they want to kind of extrapolate and have a go with trialing out their sideboard list, please hit us up and we'll give you a game and learn all together, because we're just as new. We haven't played too many games with this format, so we're interested in learning the format as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll just do a couple more things on the event. We'll just flesh that out. So the event's on the 29th and 30th of October at House of War. We've been through that already. $60 a head. We have announced the $5,000 prize pool. The reason for that is purely because that's the cost of the entry fees. We're hoping for 80 players, and the prize pool is going to be reflective of the number of sign-ups. So if we don't get 80 people, it won't be a $5,000 prize pool. If we get more than 80, it'll be higher than $5,000.
So effectively, what we're saying is all the money we're receiving from entries, 100% of that will be going into the prize pool. So the more people we have, the bigger the prize pool, and if we get more than 80 players, it will increase.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there is a few rules which pertain exclusively to this event, and we're doing this. It's sort of a bridging event because we're running the Australian New Zealand FAQ. It's what everyone knows, what we grew up with, what we're familiar with. but we're looking to bridge ourselves into the ITC meta. Jeremy mentioned before that we had the privilege and the pleasure of going to WinterCon and playing a purely ITC game, and that was an amazing experience. We learned a lot. I learned heaps. I don't know, you learn anything?
Oh, the odd thing.
Yeah.
A few things.
Okay, that's good. No, we both learned. We had a great time. We learned a lot of stuff, and there's obviously a lot of positivity around the ITC format. So we are bridging that across with the Triboard format. That's half of the balancing. The other half of the balancing for this event is a couple of addendums that we've added to the event. So I'll run through a couple of them. Shall we go straight into it?
Sure, but just before you do, when we're talking about addendums, we're talking about the ITC addendums. So where you've got, like, for example, the Australian and New Zealand FAQ, which is a very elaborate, like, a very well done, well crafted, well considered FAQ. Most of us are familiar with that, especially, I guess, in the southern states, as far as I know, like South Australia and Victoria. I think some of the eastern states, like NSA, New South Wales, ACT, they've started to use ITC FAQ a bit more. But for those familiar with the Australian New Zealand FAQ, we feel like it's important, we want to use that, but there are, in the ITC FAQ, there are a few addendums that particular Frontline Gaming and that kind of like conglomerate of people have come up with a few addendums that they feel balances the game and kind of reduces the ceiling on a lot of the most polarizing,
keeps the game
toxic
healthy.
elements. Exactly.
Yeah, keeps it healthy for everyone. So those restrictions are, the first thing we've done is with rerollable saves. So any save of a 2-up, be it invulnerable, cover, or armor save, it only passes on a reroll of a 4, 5, or 6. The next one is any army can only have one gargantuan monstrous creature or super heavy vehicle for this event. For ranged destroyer weapons, we have nerfed the ranged destroyer weapons profile. That's brought down the 6. The roll of a 6 on the ranged destroyer weapon is now only 3 automatic wounds with no saves allowed, or 3 hull points in a penetrating hit with no saves allowed. Lastly, psychic powers, electro displacement. Any unit that either uses electro displacement or is the target of electro displacement can't charge once it's electro displaced. If it was locked in combat, it is now placed an inch away from enemy models and in unit coherency, and is no longer locked in combat. Shifting worldscape, that power's been banned, so that power's not in use at all. If you roll that up, you re-roll that dice. Invisibility. This power is altered to read that units shooting at a unit under the effects of invisibility count as ballistic skill 1, and in close combat, they only hit on a roll of a 5+. I think that sums it up.
Pretty much. Those addendums are the most prominent, the most significant of ITC. There are other addendums. For example, ITC have amended the rule for stomps that you can look out, so stomps. However, because we are using the Australian-New Zealand FAQ, that FAQ has already drawn in the GW rulings from their draft FAQs that has already facilitated that. So there are there's quite an extensive interplay of different things.
It's a really interesting time for Warhammer 40k with Games Workshop coming back into the scene and interacting a little bit more and putting out FAQs and answering questions and that sort of thing. So what we've cherry-picked, to put it lightly, we've cherry-picked the best of what we feel is the best and the healthiest for all the different formats.
So just to reiterate, I mean, we have mentioned it, we're using the Australian New Zealand FAQ that has recently been updated to bring in the GW draft FAQs. In addition to that, we have those addendums, which are the most prominent ITC addendums. This is a formula that is a bridging formula. We don't plan to use this going forward. This is a kind of a way to introduce people that are familiar with the Australian New Zealand FAQ to the ITC feel, but going forward, once people are familiar with this bridging style, we will it kind of opens up the door to ITC events being run more frequently.
And look, just on that note, I had a great time at WinterCon. I really felt like I was a part of a larger community. Do you know what I mean? Being able to go there and have those conversations with those guys, and we're chatting about different plays and different builds, and I'm like, I've read about that sort of stuff on the forums. Do you know what I mean? It's We're sort of segregated a little bit here with the Australian New Zealand FAQ. We have been for some time, just because it's so different to what's played internationally. This was like a big breath of fresh air for me.
Yeah, so there's obviously pros and cons to something like ITC. There's pros and cons to totally uncomped. There are pros and cons to community comp systems and panel comp. We feel like the biggest, I guess, vocalization we heard, I guess, around when we were in South Australia, we were in Canberra, that people appreciate diversity when it comes to this kind of hobby. Like everybody kind of goes home, paints their armies, kind of hobbies up different units and HQs and things like that. Ultimately, people want to be able to play with various formats. They want to experience the international metagame. They also want to experience the, I guess, depth and breadth of what Community Comp offers. Community Comp offers kind of like empowers every codex.
Yes.
That's very unique, and I think Community Comp have done a great job with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost like, I would say it's one of the, I'd say as far as I know, the best kind of a points-based comp system available. I know a lot of
best
other,
we've seen.
Yeah, a lot of other countries have tried to do that. A lot of communities from different countries have tried to comp. I've seen like some Swedish comp documents and stuff like that. Community Comp is tried and tested. It's very successful, but you know, I think sometimes people want to be able to play with.
We've had like more than 6 Community Comp events this year on the calendar. Unfortunately, with the Alliance being pulled, there was just, you know, we're just shaking up a little bit, throw something different in the mix. I think I'm really excited about this format. Just thinking about writing lists for it, you know, I get a little bit angsty about like, all the things I can do. So I'm excited to try and, you know, play around with the system, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun for everyone, especially when it comes to list writing. So,
and I think it doesn't like it rewards really good players get rewarded for creativity and for, you know, the options they have available. But players that might be newer to the game also get rewarded because they get to cover their bases as well.
Yeah.
They get to write a list and they get to kind of say, okay, I want to play with my Land Raider, but I'm going to put it in my sideboard because if my opponent's got 10 Melter Guns in their list, maybe I won't use my Land Raider this game. So you get that diversity that, you know, even if you're new to the hobby, you don't get kind of pincered into this kind of particular list.
As we said, it removes a large element of the rock, paper, scissors matchups that we unfortunately find ourselves prey to, which is good. So we've received a number of questions. We've covered the Menza Triboard format. We're going to, as Jeremy said, we're going to do more you know, videos on list writing and that in the future. We've covered the event in its broadness. There's not much more to discuss there. Of course, any questions, please hit us up. I'll hit you back as quick as I can. But we've received a lot of questions, so we'll just go through them really quickly while we've got you here. You want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So the first one was, why did you decide to change the rules? It was obviously pertaining to the addendums.
Yeah. The addendums were put in because whilst the triboard format is like a natural balancing mechanic in itself, it needed a little bit more just to clamp down some of those really ridiculous power plays like Super Friends with that invisible 2-up rerollable invul saves. This really sort of clamps that down a lot. You can still throw your blasts at it. They only pass the rerolls on a 4-up. There's a number of ways to overcome those really strict archetypes. There's a few other powers or a few other mechanics that can be quite toxic in the forms of like shifting worldscape, for example, and just removing those. While I remember it, it's worth noting that every codex, data slate, you know, supplement, everything that Games Workshop has released is legal for this event, with the exclusion of Imperial Armor and you know, Forge World and Apocalypse formations and data slates. And the other one we're not going to be using is the Death from the Skies supplement. We won't be using that for this event. You can still take the models and they get the you know, whatever it is, but we're not using that dogfight phase. We're not using that supplement for this event. It's too new. It adds a different element to the game. Maybe in the future we'll look at that.
Okay, so yeah, so that's all good. It is, once again, like, you know, just to complement what you said, we could have just run totally uncomped, but we wanted to interact with that international ITC meta. And as Shawn said, a lot of those rules that addendums we've implemented remove a lot of really toxic elements. No one wants to get a 60-inch charge on them using, you know, those psychic spells on turn 1. People don't like pushing through twice rollable saves.
It's not fun for anyone.
It's just not fun for anyone. And sure, a sideboard does allow a certain level of countering, but there's only so much a Klexus Assassin can do.
Yes. True.
All right, so we've got a few questions.
Do you want me to do the next one?
Yeah, sure, man.
Why is the prize pool so big?
The prize pool is so big because we feel like we've been really fortunate with, you know, collaboration with House of War.
Yes.
You know, we've been able to create a situation where we're going to put 100% of our proceeds into the prize pool. Yep. We're just going to put it all in. But we are, as we mentioned, we are going to make sure that those prizes are distributed very fairly. Best presented is going to be treated almost with the same level of significance as the winner of the event. We want to kind of recognize how important hobby is for the community. We want to see really well painted armies. We want to reward people that might kind of say, even though I've got these options of all these sideboards, sure, I'm going to bring 2,050 points worth of stuff to this event, but I'm going to make sure it's all scrupulously painted and highlighted.
They deserve to be rewarded.
They deserve, someone's going to bring 2,050 points, and it's worth noting that your whole available models is going to be assessed for paint score. When you set up your best present, it's going to be everything. You deserve to be rewarded. So we're going to siphon that prize pool into overall categories.
No worries.
All right, why aren't we using community comp?
We covered it briefly before. We're not using community comp at this event purely because there's just experiencing that international meta with ITC and just bridging across there. It's a breath of fresh air. It's something different. We've seen a number of community comp events this year, and they've been amazing. I've really enjoyed events like the Hunt, TerraCon. They were all great.
We've got EastCon coming up.
Got EastCon coming up. Unfortunately, the calendar doesn't see much for diversity, so we just wanted to shake it up a little bit with something a little bit different, and we'll see how it goes. Do you know what I mean? I think it's going to be great. So
sure. Okay, we've got another question. I guess we've already answered this. Is the sideboard format competing with community comp?
Absolutely not. So as we said before, when we designed the system, it was designed to work within the framework of community comp and within other formats. In many ways, it complements those formats. We would encourage tournament organisers to use this for their events, whatever they may be.
And as a side to that, in addition, we are 100%. We will be using the Menza Triboard format with community comp in the future. We feel like they gel really well together. I feel like the combination of being able to kind of use specific allies and variation, as well as a community comp situation, will empower codexes like Blood Angels, Sisters of Battle, Chaos, things that are kind of scorned. That will put them right to the top, being able to access multiple different choices.
Yep.
And the last question, why don't you go one from
I've got a couple
there. Go for it.
Sure. So we've answered quite a few of these already. Can my Warlord be in my sideboard? Can my Warlord be included in my sideboard?
No. Your Warlord, your primary detachment must be included within your core list. So a core list has to be 100% Battleforged, legal, self-contained list. And because your main list must include your primary detachment, therefore it must include your Warlord.
Yep. Cool.
Any other questions regarding?
I think we've covered most of them. I mean, hopefully, I'm sure there'll be a whole plethora of questions we'll probably receive as more people have a look at the player pack. We'll of course answer them as soon as we can, and we'll put them all up on the website as well, so that people have access to them. But I think that's covered most of them for now.
The last question, which we received a couple of hours ago, and a few people have said it.
Yeah.
Why 1350? I prefer bigger games. A lot of people have said, why didn't you pick 1850?
That's a really interesting question, and it's something that there's so many different ways to answer that. None of them are right, none of them are wrong. Do you know what I mean? 1350 is not necessarily the right way to do it, but I think for this event, it's going to be the ideal way. We're bringing a new format with the Triboard sort of system. That's going to create a little bit more complexity for players, and they're going to need more time to complete those games. You could look at it as I'm making a 1350 army, but you actually, as Jeremy said, you've got access to 2,050 points worth of available models. So you're actually playing a 2,050 point game. You just start with 700 points off the board. So you just save them, their reserves, they come in next battle, okay? So I think that, the games are going to go faster. There's going to be an additional element of strategy. You're going to avoid those paper, scissors, rock matchups. And I think it's going to be very rewarding.
Yeah, not much to add to that. I think there will be time constraints. Like there will be that little pre-game phase of working out sideboards. We needed to account for that. We also needed to account for the fact that, as you said, with the sideboard, the availability to have something like 2,050 points. We did in the Menza Triboard document mention some recommended ratios for different points games. Our recommended ratio for 1850 points games was a 1350 main list and a 500 point sideboard. If you add all those numbers together, so for 3 times 500 and 1350, that comes to 2,850.
Yep.
And
not everyone has access. Not everyone has 3,000 points worth of a given faction.
And we don't want people to feel like they have to compromise with their lists because we're expecting such a big list. So
it's a big ask.
It is a big ask. So we think that given that we are using those sideboards, 1350 is the appropriate points limit.
It's a neat number. It works really well. It's balanced properly, and it's very close to that 1850 point mark that people have been playing with for so long. Once you factor in the whole sideboard thing.
Well, we're obviously excited. We've already been looking at lists. We've had people.
Other people have already been looking at lists.
People from all around the community have been sending us this little very. And we won't give away people's strategies.
No.
But really sneaky questions. Can I do this? Can I do this? Yeah, most of the time the answer has been yes. Because it's such an open system. There's not many limitations. The limitations are pretty obvious. They're pretty transparent. So let your brain juices flow. The world is your oyster.
Have some fun with it. Let's not get bogged down in the complexities here. Let's just write some lists, have some fun. It's going to be a great time. I'm really excited to put some videos up on some of the lists that I've been tinkering with. It's obviously, as I said before, it's something we've been working on for some time now. So there's obviously been discussions with other people, and they've sort of had their little cogs churning for a while. Some people found some interesting things. People
have said a very common kind of, I'm not going to say, this is not recently so much, but as we've been discussing this this triboard idea over the course of the last few months, people have said questions like, said things like, well, if you're not going to use community comp, people are going to break it. People are going to use this thing, and they're specific, I'm not, insert powerful unit here. People are going to use warp spiders. People are going to use, riptides. And then I've kind of said, but with 350 points, I can take this. And then they kind of stop, and they're like, but, and then they kind of realize this realization occurs that you can't with the sideboards really allow for those one-trick pony armies to be counted. Something like warp spiders, which let's put it on the table. Warp spiders in our Eldar bikes are considered to be among the best units in the ITC format. And we just played. We just went to WinterCon, and there were a couple of players. Really. Some of them were quite new to the scene, but really adept, really smart guys playing these amazing Eldar lists.
Top tier armies on top tables, crushing face.
Yeah, and I think even if you look at a list like that with a lot of warp spiders, a lot of Eldar bikes, with the ability to take a sideboard, you can just shut those armies down. If someone just turns up with a warp spider Eldar bike army, and you kind of say, okay, what's good against warp spiders?
I've got the mask in my list.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But yeah, there's obviously things that just shut them down, that their shooting's not effective against, that they can't get in range of, that you can kind of answer them effectively. We won't give that away now, but the point is, these people that have been a bit they've been naysayers, so to speak. Once we've kind of had a conversation with them and kind of explored how we would counter their list with a sideboard, they've kind of jumped on board, and they've kind of said, okay, that's actually really cool, let's do it.
I think it's quite telling that we've seen it being taken up in Age of Sigmar to such a large degree. I never would have expected for a system like this to work within a Games Workshop sort of gaming format, because there's just been this natural sort of all this traditional mindset of no, this is how the game's played. But times are changing. We touched a little bit on it in the player pack. It's changing times. We've seen a host of changes recently with new codexes coming out. Power creep. Some of the new releases have been insanely strong. FAQs have come out, released by Games Workshop, which have really shaken everything up as well. It's a really good time for this sort of thing to come in. I'm really excited to see what people can do with it.
Yeah. Well, we're really excited, and as we said, content's going to be coming out. Obviously, people are preparing. There's events coming up. We've got EastCon coming up pretty soon. Things around the corner. But we will continue to release content for this, for the Menza Open, and we'll keep you updated. We still have a few...
this is not the whole egg.
This is not it. There's a couple of things that will come out. We're not holding out on you, but...
we are a little bit.
A little bit. But this event... it's keep those dates free.
Yes.
Let's just leave.
There'll be more announcements closer to the date. We'll release the player pack. We've got to release the template for list submissions. We're going to be doing a host of videos on we're going to run through. We're going to do a more in-depth analysis on writing a list for the event, and we're also going to do an in-depth explanation of how you actually do the opening procedures with selecting your sideboard, etc., etc. So we're going to run through everything and explain it as best we can, and hopefully that way everyone on the day, everyone knows what the go is, and we're all going to have a great time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so thanks for watching us. Look forward to seeing you there.
Jeremy out.
Cheers.